Welcome in to the Just Basketball Show for Friday, June 2nd. I am Chris Manning. That is Brendon Kleen. We are here with you after Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Denver wins 104-93. Nikola Jokic, 27, 14, and 10. I don't know, Brendon. I kind of wonder if Mark Jackson watches this game and every time Nikola Jokic does something awesome, if he's like, man, I didn't vote for that guy for MVP. Am I just the world's worst hater? I think the answer is yes. Jamal Murray has 26, but 2-7 from 3. Michael Porter Jr. gives you 14. Bam Adebayo is, in my mind, the best player for Miami, 26 and 13. Offensively, I would say at least he's the best player in Miami, only 13 for Jimmy Butler. Not really enough. What we're going to do on the show is give you the big things, the big three things that really kind of decided this game. And Brendon, I want to start with the Denver Nuggets just not missing a beat. And it turns out that having some time off and getting a chance to get your muscles right and getting a chance to recover and then play a team that just played back-to-back grueling series and in particular just finished a 7-game series that was particularly grueling, turns out that that's an advantage for the team that's also playing at home and at altitude. Who would have thought?
Sure, but I feel like the Denver Nuggets have been this dominant throughout. I mean, you and I thought that they would kind of steamroll in this series. I mean, we did talk about how Game 1 would likely go this way, in large part because of the rest differential, but I sort of feel like this outcome would have been the case. Let's say the Nuggets and Lakers win 7 also. I still think the Nuggets win this game by double digits. I think I'm going to expect them to win most of these games by double digits, but you're totally right. They did not miss a beat. They obviously came into this game with a few things up their sleeve. First off being, using Aaron Gordon with deep post seals in transition, off of switches, attacking Gabe Vincent. Just, you can tell that the thing they identified coming into this series is we are bigger. And they haven't been significantly bigger than their opponent in a lot of these series. And so I'm sure that was kind of a relief to them. And they went after it. And that was able to get them a 9-point lead after the first quarter. And from there, it was a lot more of the two-man game, a lot more of Jokic, and they took it home. But without that little burst by Aaron Gordon at the beginning of the game, I do think this looks pretty different.
Yeah, there's one thing we should, I have to say as a caveat, as saying the Nuggets did not miss a beat. I'm throwing that in my own quote in quotation marks. So Cleaning the Glass, Ben Falk's site for stats, for the has been tracks offensive ratings without garbage time throughout the playoffs, every game of the regular season, all that stuff. And they have box scores where they have the advanced numbers. So Denver's offensive rating in this game, Brendon, have you looked at this?
I just pulled it up while you were setting it up. Yeah.
So offensive rating of 112.1. That's below average for the year. That's below average for the playoffs. Denver's offense in the playoffs coming into tonight was 121.7 per 100 possessions. That was the best in the playoffs. The only team that comes close was the Clippers from the first round. New Orleans, had a really good offense, but they played one game. So, I'm not really counting that one game sample. So, look, when we say the Nuggets did not miss a beat, we can say that while I think also acknowledging that this wasn't their best offensive performance, there wasn't this most potent offensive performance, but it felt like the process of what they were doing worked every time it needed to.
Yeah, kind of a tale of two halves, I would say, right? I mean, I think the first half, they have 59 points, second half, 45. And I think, one thing that did go in Miami's favor that maybe was overlooked or that we thought the Nuggets would be able to solve for better than they did was the zone. I think that in the second half, that zone defense that Miami is so good at not only executing, but also that Eric Spoelstra is so timely with throwing it out there, that seemed to make a difference. And if nothing else, even though, Denver at the end of the day, they still shot 51% from the field. They still got to the line 20 times, 29 assists, all their vitals on offense, aside from that offensive rating, still look right where you'd like to have them. They weren't able to get to that two-man game as much, I would say, because of the zone in that second half. And you could feel Spoelstra and the Heat getting a little more confident, throwing it out there even when Jokic was playing. And so I think that really made a difference. But at the same time, when you think about what Denver is and how they approach this game, if Jokic is just more aggressive from the jump or at all, like if Jokic is just more aggressive, period, I think this game could have been even more lopsided and maybe Miami never makes it interesting. But Jokic only took 12 shots.
And it's an interesting thing that that's how it happened, right? Because throughout these playoffs, what is one thing we have hit on over and over again? That Nikola Jokic has really taken on the mantle of being a scorer, has taken on the so-called the role of being that number one guy. He has taken that on a little more willingly than I think we have seen him do in the regular season. And then in game one of the finals, ostensibly, I mean, I think the biggest game of his career, right? His grand arrival, the Joker's grand arrival on the stage, he kind of goes back to his kind of comfort zone, so to speak. He kind of goes back into that space where he's passing, looking for cutters and probing. And I agree with you. I think he needs to be more aggressive. And I think if they do see the zone against him, they're going to beat it every time, Brendon. If they, to quote friend of the pod, Robbie Callen, a tweet that he had, throw the ball into the middle to the big smart guy and let him make a good decision. Like, that is going to bust that zone. That's going to bust it up if they just trust Jokic over and over again. Bam is one of the best defenders in the world. Jokic has an answer for everything that Bam is giving him every time.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, first half, Jokic didn't shoot, and I think he had 5 field goal attempts in the first half, and they were up 17 at halftime. So it's like, you know, the version of like discomfort that we saw from Denver tonight was, oh man, our double-digit lead is only 14 instead of 20.
Oh no.
Right? So it's like, and then he had to start shooting again. And then he did it. And then he made his shots, and then they went back up closer to 20, and then the game ended. It's kind of a level of, it's just a matter of degrees here. But I think the other part of it with Denver tonight that was pretty impressive and obviously inspiring for how they can move forward is they got the out of this world Murray game, or at least first half already, you know, and they don't have to kind of worry about or wonder if that's coming. They got it and they won it. 26 points, 10 assists for him. He was just a killer in the mid-range. He was 9 of 15 from 2-point range, which is awesome. He was just ruthless with the mid-range pull-up. He seemed to make every single one that he took, only 3 turnovers. So that's the type of guy that you could think, well, the layoff, the lack of rhythm, does he have an off game to get this series started? And he didn't. You know, there's still games to come for Denver where they make more threes, where Jokic does score the ball more, where Michael Porter Jr. gets hot. None of those things happened tonight. Jokic barely shot the ball, and they still won by double digits. So that's what it looks like when somebody, you know, is dominant in the way you expect, is they win easily.
Well said. All right, let's talk about Bam. So, Bam, to me, Brendon, looked like he got his gas tank back a little bit after he looked a little cooked at the end of the Eastern Conference Finals. And he was aggressive and he's physical. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I feel like he is normally so impactful defensively and dominates the game in that way and is excellent there. Again, he's one of the best defenders in the league. This was like an offensive Bam game, and this feels like it might be a Bam offensive series. He was a little more aggressive getting to the rim. He was converting some of his looks. He had a little more, I think, confidence in his ability to do that. Maybe they needed at the end of that Boston series. He finishes in 40 minutes, 26 points, 13 boards, 5 assists, 13 to 25 from the field. Had just 1 turnover. It's like a very, very good Bam offensive game. Mm-hmm. That I think Miami is going to need that a bunch in the series if they're going to figure out how to do this.
Well, they're going to need it because, like you said, it's there for him. It's structurally just sitting there for him to take advantage of. And to me, it was 3 main things, I would say, and then one that I think he could do even more of. I think offensive glass is the first place you go. He had 2 or 3 putbacks. That's and Jokic didn't have a single offensive rebound. That's usually another area, especially if you're going to say, okay, Jokic isn't going to score tonight. You would assume he's very much going to be hitting the offensive glass and impacting the game that way, and he didn't. So Bam kind of won the rebounding battle today. That's huge. The other two are, I would say I underestimated the impact that he was going to be able to have on the short roll. I think because I was expecting that he would catch the ball high and maybe try to score or maybe try to kick out to 3-point shooters. And I feel like Denver's ready for that. Where they really had a lot of success was guys cutting once he caught the ball in those spots. That was where their real, like, kind of a lot of their best offensive possessions, in my opinion, whether it was Jimmy cutting, Haywood Highsmith cutting, or even getting really quickly into a Duncan Robinson 2-man game on a catch. Those were the best moments for the Heat. And that was something I wasn't expecting. And then, I mean, this isn't rocket science or a revelation that we wouldn't have been able to project forward with game 1 coming off of the Boston series, but Al Horford is just a better one-on-one defender against Bam's mid-range pull-up game and drive game, face-up game than Jokic is going to be. And so he just was able to get a few of those floaters and like short jumpers off in a way that he wasn't against Horford. And I'm sure that helped him get more confident, because that's kind of, if he can do that, then he doesn't really have a weakness on offense. It's when he's having to make a secondary decision where he starts to turn the ball over and everything. And he didn't have to kind of cycle through all that stuff today. He was really just getting what he wanted.
One of the things, Brendon, that I think will be interesting to watch going forward is how the Heat balance Bam and getting that version of Bam against Jokic. It's not, I don't think what happened with Bam in this game is not replicable. Like, I think he's going to be like, this is what Jokic is defensively. You're going to be able to get these looks against him if you prioritize them.
And he was scoring against the drop and the hedge, which is interesting too, because you would have thought like, oh, only when Jokic like comes up on the pick and roll is Bam going to have that space. But with the drop, he was catching it and kind of getting those pull up jumpers too. So yeah, I don't really think Jokic is going to figure something out to stop him.
Yeah, it seems like what they kind of are saying with Jokic in this series is like, okay, like maybe sometimes you'll come up to the level, other times we're going to keep you at the rim, and if we'd rather like deal with Bam taking the floater a bunch of times than like a cutter, and then you swing back to a shooter, and like they're taking like even if it's a good shot for Miami, they kind of seem like they're okay with that versus some of the Heat superpower stuff, which when the ball starts swinging and moving and they get threes and the momentum kind of swings. What I also think is worth monitoring is Jokic is the pressure point on the Miami defense, or excuse me, the Denver defense. Jokic is the one that you want to press on if you're Jimmy Butler, to some degree. You're also going to do switches with guards. I think he's going to want to get Murray in switches. I think he's going to want to get, I think KCP at times even. That's someone he could, I think, want to go at just because KCP is a little, I don't think quite has the bulk to kind of handle those straight line Jimmy drives. He's going to find his targets, Brown, if he's going to be on the floor, like that's a guy he's going to go after too. Jokic is also something that if they wanted to, Jimmy Bam pick and roll with shooters around is very easily something you could do to try to force the switch, or at least like get Bam looks in that situation. And I wonder if we see a world where they like look at this and say, okay, it's not exactly our bread and butter just to like spam a Jimmy Bam pick and roll over and over again, or like invert it even to some degree. Like they like to do other stuff. They like to have other actions. They like to clear at the corner and just throw all these different looks at you. But there could be something very simple for them where it's, let's get Jokic in action. Not only can we attack him to try to get points in these half-court possessions, but also can we make Jokic burn energy? Can we kind of wear him out by kind of going at him more directly? That is like a lever that I wonder how aggressive they're willing to pull. Because like as good as Bam was, they still lost by 11. And I have a hard time seeing how they're going to win 2, 3, 4 games when Jimmy has 13 and didn't really feel like he was super like involved for most of this game in combination with Bam.
Well, that's the thing is like all of what you said is valid if Jimmy is actually at his best and punishing all of that stuff. I think that's an open question. I think to close the loop on Bam, that's exactly, some of what you're getting is exactly where I was saying there's a little bit left for him to kind of pull at. He didn't get to the free throw line at all. And so that was something you and I talked about heading into the series is, can they get Jokic into foul trouble? Can they get easy points at the free throw line? And Jimmy and Bam are going to be the two guys, obviously. Really no one else on this team outside of some Kyle Lowry junk really results in free throws. So can they do that? They didn't. Only the whole team took 2 free throws tonight. And Bam was not the guy who did that. And so that, and then I also think Bam, I think he only took 1 or 2 shots the last quarter and a half or quarter. Whatever. At one point, the announcing crew said he's 12 of 23 from the field, and that was not toward the end of the game, and he finished with 25 shot attempts. So it sort of fell off. I know other stuff was working, so that's just naturally going to be part of it. Guys started to hit threes in the latter part of the game, and Haywood Highsmith created some transition opportunities and everything else. But is that something consistent? Is that something they can really attack repeatedly? The last part of it with Jokic's defense, I think that's worth pointing out, though, is, and this can transition us into the role players a little bit, is Gabe Vincent actually was able to punish that drop with pull-up threes from time to time. And so, you're starting to come up with a few things that if Miami goes back to the drawing board and starts to watch film of what worked in this game, that they can start to feel good about. One was, Bam on the short roll, Bam in isolation, Gabe Vincent in the pick and roll with pull-up threes, and all that doesn't even include Jimmy just playing better, which is obviously what we said, it has to happen.
And if there's a coach that we know will crush the film and come back with probably the right adjustments, Erik Spoelstra.
I would hope.
Did you see the photo of him going around on Twitter the other day of him sitting in the video room with the tapes, the VHS tapes that he probably had to cut? That photo always makes me laugh.
It's kind of a flex just because now it looks so intense that he I've been doing it since this time, but it's not he just did what you had to do, and then he kind of worked,
Yeah, but I mean,
been to the final 7 times, probably a little more impressive than the tape picture personally to me, but I feel it.
It's also not as cool when it's Final Cut Pro,
No,
or Adobe
exactly.
Rush.
That's what I mean.
It's just not as cool.
It's anything vintage. It's if a picture is black and white, it's 15% cooler looking, but really it could be the same exact image.
Yeah, but it looks cooler. It just 100% does. All right, let's move on to the Eastern Conference heroes that Miami had. Brendon, they were not important in this game. Now, Haywood Highsmith, I didn't have him for 18 points in 23 minutes and 2 of 4 from 3. I didn't have that on my bingo card, but let's run through some Eastern Conference heroes. Caleb Martin gets the start, as I think everyone expected. The right call. I would expect him to start in game 2. There's no reason for him for that to be the lever they pull. Had 3 points, 1 of 7 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3, 4 boards, 0 assists, 0 turnovers. Not a particularly good game from him. Gabe Vincent had 19, 5 of 10 from 3. They got that really good night from him on a night where they needed it. Max Strus, 21 minutes, 0 of 10 from the field, 0 of 9 from 3. Maybe I would love to see the second spectrum data. It felt like he maybe missed the most open shots that anyone had.
Yeah.
Tough night for Max Strus. And Duncan Robinson, fresh off of the Hulk Hogan taunt at his hometown Celtics crowd. 21 minutes, 1 of 6 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3, 3 points, and just kind of a lot of blah. Got some okay minutes from Lowry, I thought, but the wings, Brendon, that they've been so reliant on, that have been their superpower, just kind of didn't make shots. So I want to frame it this way and ask you this. Is that just they missed open shots? Is that what is it? First game on the road in the finals, what do you attribute that to? Because I didn't feel like it was something Denver was doing to really contest shots in a real way. Just they missed a lot of them, and sometimes it's as simple as that, but also very frustrating, I'm sure, for Miami.
Yeah, I think those are all better possibilities than I think Mike Greenberg's. The thing that he threw out there at halftime was the altitude. I don't know how altitude makes you miss shots personally, but we don't have to bust out the storylines that don't matter in the playoffs. We already did that a couple times earlier in the postseason, but altitude does matter. Anybody who's played there has said as much, but I don't think that's why you go 13 of 39 from deep. I mean, I don't know. I think right away you could tell there was a little bit of hesitancy. I mean, so they had Gabe Vincent early. I think the first shot he took in the game, it was like a mid-range pull-up that hit the front of the rim. And you could tell like he had the three, but then he also had the drive, and he kind of settled into an in-between, and it never looked comfortable. Cody Martin had the ball in his hand, or Caleb Martin had the ball in his hands a lot in this game, which I know that's happened throughout the postseason, but to open a finals game felt a little bit surprising, and maybe told the story of what was to come with Jimmy if they weren't like, ready to have him have the ball, if it's the ankle with Jimmy or what. And then Strus, like, it's hard to disentangle once you start to see a guy missing to be like, remind yourself that players just miss shots, but he looked uncomfortable. It looked like the release was different every time. It looked like it just looked funky. It looked rushed. It looked uncomfortable. The last like 5 or 6 he took after he missed his first few. So I don't expect that to continue. I think it's nice to see that Vincent bounced back. He had a really solid second half. I was telling you in the first half, I would have put him on the list of guys who didn't show up. And then he kind of, became the hero a little bit by helping them on that run late. So I tend to think that with the ball movement that they were still able to have, the fact that some of their normal stuff was still working, Bam was playing so well. Lowry, I think, is somebody that should probably be playing even more than he did. That all makes me feel like we could easily see a more normal 38, 40, 42% three-point shooting game from Miami in game 2, game 3, whatever. But it still hurts to lose one when a lot of other things did go right and you made a run late, but you just didn't have the shot making to make it happen.
Miami in this game took significantly more threes than Denver. They took 39 3-pointers. Denver took 20. Denver took 27. That's a 12-3 difference. They made 5 more. There's also a big free throw advantage in this game, which I feel like will probably always tilt Denver in the series a little bit, but Denver took 20. Miami took 2, which is tied like the record, I think, for the fewest free throws made in a game, I believe the broadcast said. Like, that's probably not going to happen again. And that's like another thing. It's like, if Jimmy Butler is playing like Jimmy Butler, he's going to get like 8 free throws on his own, and like some of that math stuff is going to change. The 3-point math, Brendon, like just has to tilt Miami's way if they want to have a chance. It just does. That is like a very
more than it did tonight even. I mean,
Yeah, like it has to be like overwhelming. Denver's offense, like it is possible to me that this is, in terms of efficiency, the worst Denver's offense looks for the entire series. It is possible to me that this is the floor for what Denver's offense is.
Well, that's the thing with the threes, right? Like, I think Aaron Gordon not taking threes is actually a good thing for Denver. So in that case, it's like he only took 1. Well, that's a W. And then, Michael Porter Jr. is probably just going to shoot better. So that's definitely, to your point, just distance shooting we're talking about. And then, but like KCP, there's definitely meat on the bone there. He didn't really get involved at all in the offense tonight. He had that one mid-range jumper that actually was pretty important when the Heat were making a run, and it was like they really needed that shot. But otherwise, not so much. And so 3-point wise, I don't think it gets much worse than this for Denver. And we talked about Jokic being able to score more. So yeah, you're probably right. My thing with the Heat role players is, do they just play Highsmith more in the next game? Is that, I mean, we can maybe get into adjustments too, because we're kind of already talking around that. But
yeah, let's go into adjustments, because
he also was the most impactful Murray defender that we saw the Heat put out there, and he was able to create transition opportunities and make a couple corner threes. Like, he was probably their best role player, depending on how you count Gabe Vincent. But he was better than Martin. He was better than Duncan Robinson. He was better than Strus.
The levers I think Miami has would be play Highsmith more, play Kevin Love, and play more zone.
More zone, I could see. As often as they did it in the second half, but for the whole game, yeah. But what is Kevin Love going to do here? You're the one telling me, LOL, Kevin Love's impact is over in the playoffs. Don't even say his name in our preview show.
Well, okay. The only reason I say that is because if you played Cody Zeller and that didn't work, and you need to just spell Bam for 8 minutes. The reality is that like they're kind of screwed when Bam sits. Like they just might be kind of screwed when Bam has to sit.
It is. Yeah.
But like, so my thought might be, okay, if I can't play Bam for somewhere between 4 and 8 minutes a game, and we're kind of screwed defensively anyway, maybe just put the guy who's going to like shoot threes for me, and maybe you just catch a little bit of luck there. That's like my only thought with the Kevin Love thing. It is that simple. It is like it's not, he didn't play in this game. I don't think he's going to tilt the series one way or the other. But I wonder if he gives you just like, Zeller got like just mollywopped in his 8 minutes. If at least Love might give you like some offensive utility if you play that way, and you could zone up when he's on the floor and try to hide him in certain situations. Like they don't have the wings necessarily to attack him. If you kind of do that, even though they have Jokic, who's just going to attack him anyway. Like there's no good answer. But I wonder if like you give him the Zeller minutes and you tilt Highsmith up to like, if especially if Strus comes out, like I don't think you change the starting lineup necessarily for game
Not
2.
yet, probably.
Right, maybe for game 3 if it continues this way.
Well, plus Herro might play in game 2, so that according to
game
Woj,
3.
so that but
Oh,
Woj
did he
said
say game 2? Oh boy.
Yeah, pregame he had another
boy.
where he said certainly 45 times. He did his little video hit and did his thing. Woj drives me crazy in case you can't pick up on that.
Yeah.
But he said game 2. So maybe, but he said maybe, but like that would complicate the rotation even more. You're adding another wing in the mix when you already don't necessarily know who your best wings are right now.
And it's a wing that like, I mean, we've talked the offensive thing that might help your math problem to some degree. And like for all of the words of Tyler Herro, I think he would help with shot creation, and he's not going to be afraid to take the shots you need him to take. Like if he has like an 0-4 start, that guy is not going to, I think, get shaky as we go along there. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think that's what's going to happen with him.
If anything, I think he's a shooter for you. Like that's kind of the value that I see Herro providing for you right now, more than like, because you can get away with Vincent, Bam, Lowry, and a little bit of Butler as your ball handlers, but Herro just like spotting up would be pretty nice.
It's just like the phrase "a little bit of Butler" is just like that's like a bigger deal than anything. It's just like if it's a little bit of Butler, you're not winning the series. You're not taking this to 6 or 7 games if it's a little bit of Butler.
And he didn't guard Jamal Murray at all, which I was surprised by, especially when he started out so hot.
If he's not going to guard Murray, you need him to just be full bore on the other end. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't. And maybe it's the ankle. Maybe it's the game 1 of the new series. Maybe we see game 2 Jimmy rev it up. He has the track record where I believe he is going to do it. I just do. Like I'm a Jimmy Butler believer. Sure. Big face. Send me some coffee. It's really expensive. But like, if it's a little bit of Jimmy, what are we doing here? Is like really the crux of this. It's like if you're only getting a little bit of Jimmy and we're describing him as like the 3rd or 4th ball handler in certain instances, I don't understand what that is supposed to really be for Miami.
So against the Celtics, Jimmy averaged 25 points per game, 6 assists per game, but he only shot 42% from the field, 35% from 3. He had like 7.5 free throw attempts per game, so we already hit on that. That's at least one thing he could be doing. He only took about 3 threes per game, whereas tonight he was at only 2. It just wasn't a normal Jimmy game, and I feel like there are. You mentioned it earlier. There are weak points that he can attack if he goes into just hunter mode completely. But I don't know. I mean, he ended up guarding Aaron Gordon for a lot of the game is what it felt like. And I think that was actually an interesting thing that had ripple effects throughout the game is Aaron Gordon playing so well early made it harder for, I think, the Heat to get the matchups that they wanted defensively against Murray. And Jimmy's just one example of that. But like, they had Cody Martin, or I keep saying Cody. I talked about Cody Martin on Locked On Suns today as a potential trade target. Anyway, Jamal Murray guarded by Caleb Martin at times. And then everything just felt uncomfortable. And then they looked up and they were down 17. And so I think, if they're a little more ready for the Gordon thing and they can try to sell out to just stop that 2-man game more aggressively, that would help. That Gordon thing just seemed to discombobulate the whole early part of this game, and then it took until the second half for the Heat to kind of get their bearings again.
So Nuggets side of this,
Mm-hmm.
we hit on it. You know what the adjustment is, Brendon? It's Nikola Jokic scores more. That's it. That's the adjustment. I don't know what else we can like. Michael Porter Jr. make more shots and Nikola Jokic score more. I think you're probably okay if you do those two things, or one like if your MVP
I mean,
two-time
you're okay
MVP
if
just
none of them
scores
happen
more.
because you already won this game, right? It's like, like I think the big man rotation part was interesting to me as well. There were a lot of minutes. You mentioned the Cody Zeller minutes. A lot of those came with Jokic on the court, so they were resting Bam while Jokic was still out there. And
Didn't
then
understand that.
me neither. And then the Nuggets side, they had a lot of lineups where Gordon rested outside of when it seems like he normally would, and then you had a lot of Jeff Green Jokic time, which I don't remember seeing much, if any, of those lineups throughout the postseason up until now. But Miami's not exactly like a big team where you're wanting to be like, we have to have size at all times on the court, so we need our traditional four instead of MPJ sliding up or whatever the alternative was. So some of that was strange to me. Felt like game one, overanalyzing, getting cute. I would think that if we see the Heat do something different with those backup 5 minutes, and like the Nuggets only won the non-Jokic minutes by 3 in this game. So it wasn't like some thing where, even when, and Zeller was a -4. So it really was just like when the Nuggets starters were out there was the biggest point. But if you're looking at some of those backup minutes and how those can go, even if the Heat adjust, there's still the potential for that Green Gordon lineup that had been really good throughout the beginning of the playoffs coming back and doing a number on Miami like normal. We just didn't even see that tonight. So I'm not sure what the pathway is for Miami outside of take and make even more threes and have Jimmy do what we know he's capable of doing.
That was a career high in shot attempts for Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, it felt like it.
We haven't seen post game quotes come through yet. I'm very curious to see what Mike Malone says when asked about being very comfortable with Bam just taking a ton of shots.
I mean, I think you could make the argument that he got tired late, and that's why some of those shot attempts weren't coming. Guys just tend to turn into ball movers when they don't have the legs to get out there. We haven't seen Miami lose a game one yet. This was their first game one loss of the postseason, so I don't necessarily know how to expect that they'll bounce back. I'm looking at Jimmy Butler's playoff game log, and after losses, so they lost game 2 in Milwaukee. He came back with 30 points. They lost game 3, or game 5 in New York. He came back with a 24-point game, but he was not efficient. It just wasn't. It's not a pattern that he has these massive games. It's been pretty random since the Milwaukee series when Jimmy has really unleashed. I don't know. Maybe we'll look back at that Bucks series and be like, did he have to do too much? I don't want to. It's a little premature to say that, but he had 30, 56, 42 to close out that series, and then ever since it's been every other game or so.
Yeah, there's a quote that I saw come through where he said that they took too many jump shots and need to attack the rim more. And all I could think of, Brendon, was I think you should leave me, where it's like we're all trying to find the guy who did this. Is Jimmy Butler just wearing is he just wearing a hot dog suit, just being like, we're all trying to find the guy who needs to get to the rim more, and it's Jimmy Butler.
He's literally the only guy outside of Bam who can do that on their team. The only one.
So that is as simplistic as it sounds. That is really the biggest thing I'm watching into. Is what Jimmy are we getting? Are you correct in that maybe he just the gas tank got so tapped to beat Milwaukee, and the Knicks frankly just not as good.
I was thinking the Gordon stretch at the beginning of this game where he was just I'm bigger than every single player on the court. The fact that Julius Randle somewhere either watched this or saw the box score and was just reminded that he was a 6'10" power forward playing against, Jimmy and Caleb Martin and Duncan Robinson as their forwards, and somehow didn't use that to his advantage. I think
just
should make him
jabs.
Feel bad, but
he's just gonna jab step into some jumpers,
Yeah. So if last thing, if Herro plays game 2, or even if it's game 3,
Mm-hmm.
do you just add him to this rotation? Do you bench someone else? Do you slide someone's minutes down? Do you start Herro? Do you bring him off the bench? What do you feel like his role might be if and when he comes back? I mean, when? He'll be back.
Got to be the bench.
Okay.
If I'm looking at cutting, I think it would be Robinson.
I felt like Robinson played his game tonight and shots just didn't go in.
I did
think
too.
Duncan Robinson's better than Max Strus personally.
It's Strus or Robinson. It's one of those two. And I think Highsmith defensively might need to play just to guard Murray.
At least and to bring more size. Because, I mean, even if Herro plays, like, the size problem is still going to be there. I just think Denver's way bigger than them, and they were lucky to win the offensive rebounding battle tonight, but I don't know if that happens going forward. So we'll see. I just It's hard. Spo will probably pull the right levers and push the right buttons, but, the rotation is suddenly in flux, which it hadn't been. You felt like Miami knew who was going to play every night, and now it's like, you're in a little bit of second-guessing mode.
Sure. And look, they do have, and if they do have one of the advantages that we maybe didn't hit on well enough in the preview, is that like they just have some more bodies. They've played more games. They're a little more run ragged than Denver is at this point. But Denver played 5 guys 20 or more minutes. Jeff Green played 11. Christian Braun played 8. You're not going to get Zeke Naji, Vlatko Kanchar, Thomas Bryant, their big deadline acquisition, like those. Reggie Jackson, like those guys are not getting on the
floor.
Didn't
Reggie play in the conference finals? You don't believe? You don't think he's going to be the guy that swings the championship?
Here's the thing, Brendon. Here's the problem. On this podcast, I was very bullish on Reggie Jackson, and now
a lot of
forever.
People were.
Here's the thing. I think I'm done caring about buyout signings. That's my lesson.
That's probably a good idea.
Just gonna But please
Kevin
listen.
Love,
Please,
Kevin Love, probably the most impactful one, and he's not even.
Yeah.
You got a DNP tonight, so yeah, you're probably in the right spot there.
But please listen next year when we do another episode, really talking about the buyout signings. Please listen.
We're gonna get tricked into it every year.
Yeah, we're gonna be like, oh, it's Joe Johnson, 5 years after his prime. I don't know. Could he swing the title race?
Tune in.
Brendon, let's play a little bit. Let's play a little game here to talk about what's going on with teams. It's NBA Finals related. It is, but it's about the teams that have never made the NBA Finals. Here are the 5 teams: the LA Clippers, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Charlotte Hornets, the Memphis Grizzlies. There's something else with the Grizzlies that I think we will talk about in the context of this and more as more information comes out. But they're certainly a part of their story right now that's going to come up. And then lastly, New Orleans Pelicans. So again, the Clippers, the Wolves, the Hornets, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans. There's 2 questions I want to ask. We're going to start with this one. Of those 5 teams, who is most likely to make the finals next year? Who of those 5 teams is the most likely to be playing in the NBA Finals in June of 2024?
You're hedging against a variety of different things here, depending on which way you go. It's certainly not the Charlotte Hornets, so I think we can go ahead and put them to the side. All respect to Michael Jordan and whatever hedge fund manager he's selling that team to. The Los Angeles Clippers are my choice. Despite everything, they still have the superstar players that you need. They still have the depth that you need. They are a veteran team. They have one of the best coaches in the NBA. I don't think it's a smart bet. Buyout signings and the Los Angeles Clippers are 2 things that we should stop believing so much in. I think it's fair to say, but that's still my pick.
I don't feel good about any of these options, but I also pick the Clippers. The Clippers, ostensibly, we assume the summer could change things. We'll have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and Tyronn Lue, other guys on the roster that are really solid, good role players. They have an ownership that is motivated to spend money and to win and to get to that highest level and to push up to the next echelon. And at the end of the day, there are other really good players on these other teams. Anthony Edwards, amazing with Minnesota. Memphis, they have Jaren Jackson Jr. and We'll see how many games they have Ja Morant next year. The Pelicans have Brandon Ingram, and maybe Zion finally puts it together and is healthy. And there are obviously a lot of health asterisks with the Clippers. But they have Ballmer and Kawhi and Ty and PG. And that just makes them, I think, the only pick for next year.
Yeah, and we should say that part of the reason we're doing this, right, is the Nuggets are making it for the first time this year. Mm-hmm. And it takes having that star player, and it takes things lining up right. I mean, I think Kawhi, I think in particular is he's a special kind of health problem. But what I was going to say is I think we would have said the health, like if you had asked this question, the first playoffs in 2021 after Jamal Murray goes down, we would have had a big question mark. We would have been like, I don't know if Denver is going to be able to stick it out and make this happen and develop the chemistry and get over the hump because their second best player just tore his ACL. We don't know how long he might be out. So, those things happen to everybody, but it's like Kawhi is particularly a risk. I just think it's still the best bet.
Kawhi is also the player most likely to ascend to that Jokic level. Like there were stretches this year until he got hurt again.
Reascend.
Yeah. Reascend, where he was like arguably the best player of the league for a stretch. Like utterly dominant two-way Kawhi stuff. And if like that clicks together, we saw it happen with Toronto. And it's like every year means it's less likely to happen because he's getting older and there's more miles on the body and more injuries can happen. But like it could happen, and we've seen it, and we've seen the transcendent, and we've seen what that kind of apex predator wing can get you. Brendon, if you had to say the second team among the teams most likely to make the finals, who would you pick?
I think I'm going to go with the Pelicans.
I agree.
Yeah, especially in light of the Ja news from today, Adam Silver saying, they have a significant amount of information piled up, and there will be something coming soon. I wouldn't have felt good previously, but that sounds even more like an actual suspension is coming, not just a figure out your crap off the court, brother type of situation is coming. So, but I even think I might have picked the Pelicans anyway. I think that the upside of a Zion season where he plays 60 to 70 games, and which he did once already. We forget he wasn't on a good team, but he was an all-star, one of the most efficient offensive seasons the league has ever seen under Stan Van Gundy during the COVID year, the shortened 2021 season. If that happens again, you have a better version of Brandon Ingram, you have CJ McCollum, you have a ton of perfectly fitting young role players, and a coach that I trust and a GM that I trust. So yeah, I think that could happen. It would be a 2021 Suns or it would be a 2020 Heat type of situation where they add a bunch of stuff at the same time and it all just kind of breaks through ahead of schedule. But the Pelicans were the number one seed in the West up until like Christmas.
A lot of it would hinge on Zion to me. Like we would just need like Zion to be healthy and like playing 60-something games and then like healthy for the playoffs. Like that's what it would take. Because like Ingram's great. McCollum has still got it. Trey Murphy took steps forward. Maybe Herb Jones figures out some offensive stuff next year. Like they have a lot of draft capital to go make other aggressive moves to fill in needs on the roster if they need to. Like they're in a really good position to cash in assets to like figure some stuff out if they really want to. But you also just like need Zion Williams to like realize the potential of what he can be. Like it's not possible unless he would be. Brendon,
we just saw what they are without Zion. They lost in the play-in.
Yeah, they're not. They. It's just you need that guy. This where my galaxy brain went with this and trying to pick a second team because like I'm not picking Charlotte. That team's gonna probably be very bad again next year. This is a conversation for the summer. I'm a little soured on LaMelo, if I'm being honest. A little unsure about what's coming here, especially because he's about to be contract extension eligible, and I don't like some of that. It's just like what have we done here?
Bad genes. Those guys cannot stay on the court. Those
also,
two brothers.
just like what are the habits you have built towards like actual like winning high level basketball at Charlotte the last couple of years? Him and Jalen Green, I have these like very like crisis like boomery kind of thoughts in my head.
LaMelo's made the play-in twice.
Yes, that's true.
But
okay, so they're out. got to hang the banner for the play-in. Does you get custom Jordans or like Pumas when you make the play-in? Like I don't know, because he's a Puma guy, not a Jordan guy.
Kind of
Memphis,
both.
the Ja
his
thing.
owner's Michael Jordan.
Sure, the Ja thing just like eliminates Memphis
For next year,
like, yeah, and like I mean, Lord, I don't know what's coming with him in the future. Like that's one of the weirdest things in the world. Don't really understand like what to make of any of that. I'm very curious to see like what the suspension is and how that story unfolds. My galaxy brain is like, what if Ant just like levels the F up next year? Like as like if I wouldn't feel good about it, but if I had to pick a second place like after the Clippers, what if it's just like the ascension of Ant and like they turn like Cat into something that fits better with Gobert and it all just kind of coalesces?
That's the thing. That team is not making the finals with those two bigs. So I could see an Ant season that propels them to that level. I like a lot of their supporting cast, especially if they like re-sign Naz Reid and whatnot. But
yeah,
that duo is not making the NBA finals. And I'm hard-pressed to imagine that Karl Anthony Towns is making the NBA finals, period, as blunt as that is to say.
Yeah,
we've seen it 3 times. We've
Yeah.
seen 3 playoffs with that guy, and I just don't see it. So, yeah, if they were able to trade him and spin that into something else, then yeah, a team built around Ant, Gobert, and some young depth, that's pretty interesting to me. I could see that.
That's just that I don't know if I'd feel great about that as my actual second pick, but that's where my galaxy brain went. The problem is I just like where am I trading Carl?
Also an off-season podcast, but he's going to be in demand. There would be a trade. It's just a matter of is it good enough. Next 5 years was the other way we were going to go with this, Chris, and I actually do have the Memphis Grizzlies.
Okay, so I want you to sell me on this for a second because I could be very much being a prisoner of the moment with this with Ja. I just like what happens with him and what his future holds. Like, I don't know what comes after he gets suspended for 30 games. We don't.
Sure. It's more so, this is not a bet on the Memphis Grizzlies being my pick to make the NBA Finals in one of the next 5 seasons. But of these teams that have never done it, I think that their infrastructure is actually the best. And so the reason I would say the Memphis Grizzlies will make the finals in the next 5 seasons is they have Ja Morant. You're betting on him figuring it out. But if he does, you know he is one of the 5, 6, 7 best guards in the entire NBA. He has plenty of space to get better. They have a all-world defender who just won Defensive Player of the Year, who's not even making max money, so from a salary cap standpoint is easier to fit in. A awesome developing shooter in Desmond Bane. A bunch of interesting young talent and picks to get better from via trade or development. Good coach. I think an underrated coach that doesn't get talked about a lot because they haven't really been in conference finals or final situations, but I think Taylor Jenkins is a pretty good coach. And a sneaky rich owner. I don't know if you've heard about how wealthy this dude got during COVID. Salute to people who got rich off of all that. But, he like doubled or tripled his wealth during the pandemic. And he's like worth like $12 billion now, which is, not Ballmer money, but more than most other NBA owners have. So like they're going to spend. So all that together, they're young, they have the talent, they have the upside, and they have a good infrastructure at the top. That's kind of what we're looking for if you're saying somebody to win a championship or at least make the finals in the next half decade. The Clippers will be aged out in like 2 years. Those guys aren't even under contract for beyond this season. So, we don't know when Gobert's going to fall off. The Pelicans, who knows if Zion's ever healthy? Like, you start to look at it that way. It's like, well, at least Memphis just has this like, hey, can this dude get his head on straight? And then they're set up.
So that's all sound. I'm still picking the Clippers.
In 5 years, what is that team going to look like? Did they keep
Ballmer,
Shea, or did I miss something?
Look, it is just a belief that Steve Ballmer is going to spend whatever the hell he has to spend to like make this work. And like he is the closest thing we will see as an owner, I think, to like Man City, PSG, these like uber European soccer clubs and the current ownership group. And maybe this changes as we get other really, really insanely rich people and he's no longer the richest owner. And I understand there's a salary cap. I understand they've traded all these draft picks and stuff. That guy just has money and he's willing to spend it in an attempt to be really good. And like at some point, I just wonder if that wins out.
The other owners just like kneecapped him though, so I think
that is true. The new CBA is like not friendly to like Steve Ballmer being like, So like that is certainly a
they should
fair...
just call the new CBA like the Steve Ballmer honorary collective bargaining agreement. It's just it shout like subtitle shouts out to you, Steve. Like you're not getting away with this anymore. But no, that man is not opening his new arena with like Terrence Mann and Ivica Zubats. So come hell or high water, he will overpay for something. He will make a dumb trade to get somebody. He will be the next Karl Anthony Towns team if he needs to be. It will happen.
Oh boy, Kawhi for Karl.
You're saving the Minnesota Timberwolves there.
You think Kawhi is like juiced about going to Minnesota though?
No, I think Kawhi would be the actual first athlete, NBA player. Well, I guess Ben Simmons did it, but that was
that's different.
Before a trade to try to get a trade. Kawhi would just be the first guy to be like, no, I'm going to sit and then I will opt out. I'll take all the fines I need and I will opt out next summer and I will re-sign somewhere close to Southern California. And that will be that.
He's like, can you guys expand to San Diego or like what's the deal?
Can we get Vegas going? Can we get in on that? Can I be LeBron's first star acquisition in Vegas? Yeah, that would be Kawhi's approach. So no, I don't think so.
My answer would be the Clippers. If I had to pick a second team, it would be Memphis. Am I rude for saying Charlotte would still be my last place team in the next 5 years? Is that rude?
What reason have they given you? I don't even think they've made the conference finals.
No, that's like, and it's just like we don't know who the new owner is going to be. We don't know if the new owner is going to be good. The new owner could also be like not good. Like Jordan isn't like a good owner. But he's not a good owner in a certain way where it's like you could get like a Vivek owner who's like spending a bunch of money. Well, Vivek, I guess, ultimately figured it out. It took a while.
Do you know the last time the Hornets made the second round?
Was Obama president? Like, were we talking that long ago?
No. George W. Bush was halfway through his first term. That's how long ago it was. It was 2002. They beat the Orlando Magic, the Doc Rivers Orlando Magic in the first round, and then they lost to the eventual NBA Finals representative for the Eastern Conference, the New Jersey Nets.
Oh, Lord.
In 5 games. It wasn't even a close second round series.
Oh, boy.
So you're not wrong to have them last, but
I think I would still put them last.
Yeah, it's fair.
Here, if we're going to like do this, I would rank this as like, I went Clippers because of money, which like CBA, you're right. That's maybe not the right pick, but I made it, so I'm sticking with it. Memphis 2, Minnesota 3 because of Ant, Pelicans 4, Charlotte 5.
That's probably my ranking, except I would probably put Memphis above the Clippers. Obviously, like I said, I think Minnesota it's a small market, but they at least have a new ownership group. That seems like they're going to, like with the Gobert thing, they're going to at least get a little crazy for the next few years. So that feels good.
Also, I think we trust Ant to like be around and be playing basketball games, and I don't know if Zion's going to be healthy and playing basketball games in 5 years.
Ant's approach to playing is the best thing about basketball. The fact that he wants to play. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt or anything. I know there's science behind people not playing, but like, give me that guy 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, I Googled Anthony Edwards real quick, and the first headline in the news tab is, what does Anthony Edwards want from basketball? It's about winning and chasing the GOAT. Yeah, that's my guy. Him and Jaden just owning up teams.
Number 1 on my can we get him on the podcast list.
He would be very high.
I mean, not like literally of anybody, but like of the players that I think we could maybe get. He's up there. Like, we're not going to get LeBron James on just basketball, unfortunately. So,
I mean, maybe the shop buys us. You never know. The shop buys just sports.
And we do know Jeff, so maybe he can hook us up.
Yeah, maybe. What other Clutch athletes can we get via Jeff? DeAndre Hopkins just signed with Clutch. I don't know if you saw that.
You want Yusuf Nurkic? No.
Hey Nurk, can we talk about how the Nuggets like picked you before Jokic and then picked Jokic ahead of you? How do you feel?
Yeah,
about
he's
that?
A great guy to talk about for this. How does it feel that your trade was what set this entire thing off, and you not
also because
they
like clearly had some friction.
Yeah,
like very clearly had some friction.
Yeah,
It's like the one teammate we've ever had like public record of that did not seem to like Jokic.
That's just a jealousy thing, but yeah.
I know, but it's the one time it's happened.
Yep.
Everyone else, it's the big Serbian who likes ponies and he passes the ball. What's not to love?
And then Nurkic is just like MFing him in the corner. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I love a good player beef. You know, I am pro more players getting into it from time to time. Like, it's why Dillon Brooks is like good for the league to some degree, because like when he can rankle people, it's like I think that's better than everyone just getting along all the time. Like, yeah, be friends, but like on the court, like give me some friction, give me some tension, you know?
Yeah, little Nikola Mirotic, Bobby Portis.
Well, I don't think we need people's faces getting broken, Brendon, but
I mean, you're advocating for it. I'm just bringing up examples.
That was also at practice, and we didn't get to see it.
Jordan Poole, Draymond Green, if you want to go more recent. Didn't seem like that one ended so well for anybody, so I don't know. You might be on the wrong side of history here with the fighting.
But was I right about Jimmy Butler? Was right about Karl Anthony Towns? I think we understand that. We understand. He was.
Yeah. Can I interest you in a little story about a man formerly known as Ron Artest and fights?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
okay.
They don't tend to go so well.
Look, this is just because I've like watched like one WWE event, and I'm just like, this is great. I watched one WWE event that was like on at 3 p.m. on Saturday, and it's like great. Brendon, I want to ask you one thing before we get out of here.
Okay.
Game 2. Are the Nuggets going up 2-0?
They haven't lost at home in the NBA
March.
Playoffs.
And since March.
Since March? Is that what it is?
Since March. Yeah.
I think it was like the Knicks or something like that who beat them. Yeah, so yes, I think they're going to go up 2-0. I would imagine a game that feels pretty similar to this. Maybe the little parts of it that we talked about are different, but a game where the Nuggets are in control the whole time and probably win by double digits.
I agree. I think Denver is going to look more comfortable in game 2. I think Miami will do things that will rankle them a little bit. I think Miami's going to have adjustments. Spo is always going to have adjustments. But if Nikola Jokic scores more and is aggressive and kind of picks at Bam in that way, and they just like the 3-point stuff that we talked about tilts back in their favor a little bit just via maybe Murray and MPJ hitting some threes, I think they might win by like double digits again. I think that feels like very possible that it's like another like somewhat competitive. They don't pull the starters out till late game, but ultimately it feels like a pretty decisive Denver win. That's where I think we're headed.
I think they opened game 1 as 7.5-point favorites. They opened game 2 now at BetMGM as 8.5-point favorites. So, yeah.
I think I would take that, honestly.
It got a little close there by the end of this game. They didn't cover.
Brendon, I was sweating. I was sweating.
Gabe Vincent didn't steal your money, fortunately.
We move on to betting on the Memorial Tournament, which I'm attending this weekend, which will be fun. Victor Hovland finished in the top 10. Let's go. All right. That is going to be it for the Just Basketball show for Friday, June 2nd. Denver Nuggets up 1-0. We'll see what Game 2 holds. That is Sunday. We will have a podcast up after Game 2 on Sunday. That is an 8 p.m. tip. Brendon and I will be back recapping that game after that. Thanks again to Jake Stevens and Dylan Heiser for production. Back at you Monday. Enjoy the hoops while we still have them.